Restoration Romanticism. Here we go. So, all right. We talked about Henry VIII and how he separated the Church of England from the Catholic Church. Well, and then his daughter took the throne. We had some years of peace. When you make such a divide, you're going to have people who don't like it. Some people felt like Henry VIII's movement away from the church led them away from morality. And so you see an uprising of people who want to see more of a religious rule and bring things back to a very narrow way of living, which leads to the English War. Okay, so this is a huge divide in the country, obviously. You've got these, we won't call them tyrannical, but purists. I mean, that's what they call themselves. We know them as the Puritans. You had people who took over the government, and it didn't last long because, as you can imagine, people don't like that. But they took over the government for a short period of time, and during that time, theater was pushed out. It was seen as immoral. And having no place in the society that they wanted. So I love the little breakdown here. So from 1642 to 1660, the Puritans take control of England, stamp out theater activity. In 42, you see a law passed. So for 5 years, no performances allowed. But then in 47, that expired and theater resumed. New law ordering actors to be actually collected and charged in 49. So at this point, entertainment became next to none, and you can imagine working hard, very little assistance from the government, not having any kind of entertainment. People aren't going to stand for that very long, leading to the Restoration. So, on the other side of that, Puritans were pushed out of England, came to America, started to colonize, but because of those reasons in New England for a long period of time, we still saw no theater because the Puritans weren't necessarily escaping, for religious freedom, but a way to practice their religion in a government kind of setting, create their own government, coming to America to set that up. Kind of a different twist than maybe what we are always taught when we were tiny kids. So they came, and then there was no theater in America for quite a while because of the rigidity of their religion. So the Restoration comes in. Charles II comes back to the throne. Bring back in the theater. Okay, fantastic. We have acting companies now. They're being brought back in, trying to rebuild their theaters. Costumes are very simple. This is kind of like after we just got done with the pandemic and theaters tried to open. The purse strings are tight. We're all, in the red. Not a lot of money to be had, so they're doing the best they can. Meant very simple costumes, maybe something like if you were portraying somebody from a different region or culture, you would have them in normal clothes plus a turban or a veil or something to symbolize they were from somewhere else. Certainly not the ornate sort of thing we would expect today going to a show. You also saw women. Women were now allowed to be on stage, so enter the women for acting. All right, English drama, giving you some different authors here. The heroic tragedy is very popular during this time. You're going to see more things about King Arthur. We just want to see a hero. That's what they wanted to see then, which is great. We still like that today. Comedy of manners. Okay, so this was sort of big already. Meander did this, the Greeks did this, but the idea, again, I talked about Jane Austen, you making fun of the upper class. The upper class obviously didn't like this very much. That's where you saw censorship start to come in, where they were not wanting to go to theater and be made fun of. Fair enough. So they tried to censor, which is going to lead us into these laws regarding theater that are about to be passed, which is good because it was very hard to have rights to your ideas, and we start seeing that come into play here. But that's our comedy of manners. So comedy of intrigue. Okay, so you don't just have your aristocrats, right, anymore. We had two social classes, really, in the world, and very little in between. You have the haves and the have-nots. But you're starting to see during this time, we're still centuries away from the Industrial Revolution, but we're seeing a rise of the middle class, okay? The merchants, the ones who have money, weren't necessarily born to it, not with titles, but they have money. And money talks, my friends. They wanted to see something other than the upper class getting made fun of. That's good for a time, but what they really liked was that idea of a comedy of intrigue, situational, make it more fun and interesting in that way. So that's, like I said, Money Talks. So comedy of intrigue came about, and got very, very popular. You see the sentimental drama, which is really the idea that people are good, the ascension of man, that idea, that at the heart, people are really good, and if put into these circumstances, they will rise above it, virtuous human feelings. So we see that sentimental drama come out. But again, it's acting and it's good, but we haven't quite gotten to the stress and storm yet. That comes later. But you are seeing, just they want to see a little bit more like emotion here, if you will, and the overcoming emotionally of a person, not just a hero. More of an everyday hero. Okay, like I said, governments and regulation in theater. So you have plays, people are doing them, people are making money. Government's not going to just let that happen, right? They're going to want their piece of it. So we see two main parts of this: prohibiting acting for gain, hire, or reward of any play not previously licensed. So the Lord Chamberlain oversaw all of the licensing that was done in England, and you had to be licensed and give your bit to the government from the income that you were making. Frustrating, but at the same time, this keeps the regulation of the idea that I wrote a play. Just because I wrote it doesn't mean that anybody can act it anytime, anywhere. Writers needed to start getting paid for the work that they had presented and people using it. And also the restriction of authorized theaters in the city of Westminster. Now, it's really kind of funny if you keep, I hope that you're actually reading this. I'm obviously giving a brief overview. But there were people who tried to get around the idea of gain, hire, or reward. You had people who were like, okay, we're actually doing a concert and then we're going to do a free play, so people would pay for the concert and get a free play, or you can see the play for free, buy a dish of chocolate or whatever. So they were trying to find ways to get it, which led to more and more regulations, leading to what we kind of have today. All right, opera enters. Okay, so classic opera, sentimental opera, and comedy farce. All kinds of opera. People love music. People love plays. It makes too much sense to put them together. Absolutely. Obviously, still something we pay great money to go see, is the opera. So this is when we see that start to enter into everything, which is crazy. I can't imagine it was the 1700s. I always thought it was later than that before I started studying this. All right, so talking more about the rise of the Romantic movement. Okay, so we've had the Restoration. We're moving into the Romantic movement. Romantic movement basically gives the finger to neoclassicism. In the very sense of romantic, think artistic freedom. That's kind of where that's leading to. And it was very popular because you want to see something different. You had these strict rules, and you knew where you were going, you knew what you were going to see. Basically, it's kind of the same sort of structure all the time. Who wants that? It's got to keep moving forward. I'm sure you've heard of Voltaire, Dancourt. Okay, sentimentalism. Yeah, again, influence of the middle class. We want to see something different. The Marriage of Figaro is the one I want to bring your attention to. Yeah, so this was actually written, the music was written by Mozart. It's famous for the fact that you have a servant who tells his master, I'm as good as you are. It's got lots of intrigue in it, but the biggest part was that it managed to water down its original concept, get past the censors, get on stage, and it's kind of famous for the first time that it opened. 3 people were killed in a stampede. People were so emotionally triggered by this idea that the servants being as good as the masters led to another one of the many French revolutions. Influence that theater and art can have on society. Paris acting troupes, okay, so they're going around. The point here is about the expenses that were paid to the writer, okay, and to the actor. Okay, so we're talking here about the authors receiving so much revenue per play and so much per opera. Of course, people are going to, cheat and try to get around this for sure. But it was about time that you started seeing the authors get paid for what they were doing. Okay, moving on to the Italian drama. 2 different schools of thought here, really. You've got Goldoni, who was really heavily influenced by Moliere. He wanted to see more realism on stage. He wanted the comedy to be more real life. So he wanted to see that pushed farther. He really um, wanted better speeches, less verse, more comprehensive to the common person. Whereas Gulsey really liked the idea of the commedia. He just and wanted to push it farther as more fantasy, more enchantment, more improv. So he wanted to take those rules and of commedia and just go a little farther with them, not necessarily break them. So two different thoughts going on in Italy during that time. Okay, scenic design. We talked about, the first proscenium theater it was in Italy, and continuing on with that, just the ideas now of creating sets and changing them quickly. The masterful art design, you see just a huge surge moving forward in the technology here. This is actually where the first time where they started using lenses and reflectors for lighting, to use lighting to paint the set instead of literal paint all the time. Dangerous, but there you are. And that leaves us to what I was talking about, the Storm and Drang. So this is where in Romanticism where they really want to start getting raw. So the passion, the anger, the tears. You start seeing that art form of truly bringing that forward and presenting that on stage. Extreme emotions. All right, and then this guy Hugo. He broke all the rules in neoclassicism. He broke them all. He time jumped quickly. Characters who were, just tacky in their mannerisms. Changed sets quickly, where people were, oh, we're here now. We're here. Like the idea of them being like, oh, we're switching sets. We're switching where we are physically in the story so quickly. He just sort of did it all, and you know what? They accepted it. Took a while, but they accepted it. And then you probably heard of Dumas, Three Musketeers. He also wrote plays in the earlier part of his career. Okay, so that's, the Restoration in Romanticism. We have our quiz here, and then some assignments. So I briefly went over that. Look some more in detail so you can answer these questions a little bit more clearly. But just an interesting time in the history of theater. Thanks so much.